Hello, hello. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. This is Abel Pacheco, your host for the Five Talents Commercial Real Estate Podcast. We're super excited. We have an amazing guest today, Miss Annie Dickerson with Goodegg Investments. Annie, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, Abel.
Yes, I'm super humbled, very appreciative, grateful that you would take some time out to kind of share with our listeners, our network, some really good nuggets. I have a feeling that we're going to provide a lot of value today, and we were kind of doing this, pre-show kind of conversation. I told Annie, I found Goodegg originally as I was trying to look for some, I don't know if it was IRR, one of those other topics that's like, well, I need to find some information. And her website came up. It really looked like an authority kind of website. I go, these guys are pros. And then I go, oh, it's like Annie and Julie. You guys have done a ton of deals. You are pros, like $700 million of real estate. But anyways, Annie, thank you very much. Thanks for allowing us to interview you today.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here with you and your listeners. I have very humble beginnings in real estate. And so, I'm happy to help out anybody else on their investing journey.
Yeah, you've definitely helped a bunch of people. I know that, just, curating the content, putting some education, giving freely of information. So I think those are all valuable things. That's a lot of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show. And for those that don't know Annie, let me at least provide a little bit of background, right? So she's a real estate investing expert. She's got a decade of real estate investing experience, over a decade. And her and her business partner, Julie Lamb, they're co-founders of Goodegg Investments. They've got an amazing website, tells a great story. And their company helps people invest passively in real estate syndications. So they've helped hundreds of investors around the country to invest in commercial real estate assets of over $700 million worth of commercial real estate. So they've also written a book. I'd love to talk about the book that you wrote as well. It's called Investing for Good, and she's got she co-hosts a podcast. Her podcast is Investing for Good. So I love that. I love the title. I love the thought concept on it, and they're really professionals in the industry. They're also creators of a real estate accelerator. So they help and educate, coach students that are kind of the same thing, want to do the same things that we're doing, which is acquire more multifamily commercial real estate. And they have a top-rated online mastermind program. They help people raise private capital, which is one of my fun topics to talk about. So we're excited the whole way around. So Annie, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself in your own words, and then maybe tell us what you're up to today, and we'll start there.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll start by saying I'm first and foremost a busy mom. I have two boys. They are 7 and 4, and they keep me very busy. These days they are both homeschooled, so that's always a bucket of fun. And so they're a big part of my overall why. I think my husband and I, as you mentioned, have been investing in real estate for over 10 years. But it was sort of something we just did on the side as we were building our careers. So we discovered house hacking back when we lived in Washington, D.C. In our early 20s. We were very fortunate to get into it pretty early. And we bought this row home. We were living in Washington, D.C. at the time, and it had not one but 2 units. And the basement had been a brothel previously. So we put in a lot of sweat equity into that property. But I still remember it was so cute. We were 23 at the time, and we fixed it up, and we said, okay, well, what should we do? I guess let's do an open house. And so we went out and we bought balloons. We put an ad in Craigslist, and we started to get some people in. Unfortunately, it rained really hard that afternoon, so the balloons were a terrible idea. But we found some really great tenants right off the bat, that very first open house, who are still good friends of ours to this day. And so that was really our first foray into passive income. And but we didn't really, at that time, we didn't think much of it. So we just kept continuing to build our careers and continue to house hack. In fact, we're still house hacking today. And what happened was, a few years ago, we decided to focus a little bit more on real estate investing. I mentioned my kids are my big why, and I was in this job where it was go 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 all the time. I had no time. I was working from home, but I couldn't spend time with my kids. They were right outside the door. I could hear them laughing outside, running up and down the halls, but I couldn't spend time with them. And I said to myself, there's got to be something that I can do, maybe take a little pressure off my job. And so fell into the bigger pockets rabbit hole, and
Yeah, this is what I
started.
remember hearing you
Yep,
talk about, like the whole path on bigger pockets, and which is a
exactly.
common starting place
Yep.
for a lot of investors, right?
Mm-hmm. So I started learning more about real estate investing. And at first, we started just investing out of state ourselves in small multifamily. And as our friends and family got interested, because it was all that my husband and I could talk about, every time we went out, we would talk to our friends and family about, hey, guess what? We just bought another property, or here's what we're doing. And people, sure enough, people started to get interested. But I realized that they didn't want to do the work or
Hmm.
necessarily learn how to do it. They weren't interested. They just had some money that they wanted to place. And so that's when I discovered syndication. I didn't even know that passive investing was a thing until that point. And that's when I started reaching out to help my friends and family to get into these types of investments.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I've heard you talk a little bit about your mom too, where your mom's a passive
Mm-hmm.
investor now, but nobody really showed her. So
Yep.
she obviously didn't show you. I have similar background. You know, my parents are working, you know,
Yeah.
right now in their
Yep.
early 70s.
Mm.
And unfortunately, they're still kind of in that position. So no, you know, it's not
Mm-hmm.
something that was passed down from our
Right.
family. And now
Right.
I kind of feel like, oh, my dad's asking me, well, what do I do? I have a little bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I put it? Right.
Yeah.
So it's just a different,
Yep.
different concept, right?
Yeah, I helped my mom invest in multiple syndication deals, and now she doesn't really keep track of it, but
Hmm.
she'll open up her bank account and be like, "What's this $1,000 here?" And I'd be like, "Mom, that's your passive income." And she's like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
guess I got some money to spend."
Yeah. Like, mom, you're not reading my monthly updates. And
Yeah,
she's like, you told me I could be passive. You
right.
told me I didn't have to do anything. She's like, I've heard your
Exactly.
airplane analogy, Annie,
Yeah.
which we'll have to say it at least once during the show. But
Yeah.
you know, it's the truth, right? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, there's some money, and I don't really have
Yep.
to do anything, and become
Mm-hmm.
a great passive investor through the process. So cool.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Very good. So that's an amazing kind of start here. If I could pause you, because there's way more that I want to touch on, but even in this first part, right? You started sharing kind of your wins. For me, this was like one of those paradigms where I wanted to share more of my wins, but a little bit like I kind of felt, and my wife I know definitely deals with this sometimes. It's like I'm uncomfortable saying we bought another deal, we bought another
Mm.
100, and now especially like, oh, we invested in another 100-unit apartment complex, and people are looking at us like our friends, our family, like, where's all your money coming from? Where is this? And so did you have some of that you kind of dealt with in your friends, starting out?
Um, I think in everything, it's always about how you frame it for people. And I think we always came from a place not of like conquest, like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we collected another property and put another trophy on the shelf. It was more about, hey, check it out. Look how many people we've been able to help through all of this. And we met another mom who's, she's a stay-at-home mom, and she's not making any income herself, but she was able to invest in this deal with us. And now she's able to contribute financially to her family, and she loves it. Her husband is really grateful. And so we start from a place of telling those types of stories rather than saying, hey, check out this 350 unit property.
Yeah, that's a good mindset. I know you have a kind of one of the aspects is helping busy families create that passive income through real estate investing, and a lot of your branding and your marketing is speaks really to that. And I have a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and me and my
Oh, you're
wife have
busy.
been. Oh yeah. It took us a little while. Took us a little while to have kids. I'm like 41. My wife's like 35. So we waited towards, I don't know how many years we've been married, 12 plus, and 16 together. So we've been having that, our alone time, and now I have kids and trying to do all this. It's definitely fun. It's definitely interesting. But yeah, I found myself like posting way more and pushing the, content out to try to, tell others like, hey, there's a really amazing way to kind of change your life, change your family's life,
Yes.
create a legacy of wealth, and change the future for our children. So very
Yeah.
much like I find myself gravitating to a lot of things you said because of family and that type of thing. So I like your
Yeah.
perspective in that.
Yeah, and that's so key, is that I think a lot of people get intimidated by the thought of going out and talking to friends and family about this stuff. And it's a simple mindset shift. I think a lot of people, when they start out, they think, well, I have to, it's like when you do a fundraiser in elementary school, right? You think like, oh, I got to go and sell this stuff. But you don't think like you could be helping somebody. I remember when I was going door to door in elementary school selling, I think it was wrapping paper or something.
Yeah.
I knocked on this one door, and this mom opened up, and she was like, oh, thank goodness you're here. I haven't been able to get to the store. I've been so busy at home with my kids. I want to buy like all these different things. Right. And so for her, I wasn't selling her something, I was providing a service. And so that's the same when it comes to raising capital and bringing investors together. It's not about selling them a deal that I need their money for. It's really about giving them an opportunity that they otherwise wouldn't have access to, that could, just like you said, change their lives.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And something you don't know about me is like I have a 20-year sales background,
Uh-huh.
tech hosting, a lot of I sold cars, I sold furniture, I sold cars. Well, I already said cars, but a
Lots of
few different
cars.
things. I sold a lot of them. But through the process, cell phones was the other, and Cutco
Mm.
knives is one that I always
Oh,
mention. Have you
yeah.
heard of Cutco?
I have.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
well, I'm going to hit on this again too with you. But I did this for years, and one of the best piece of advice that my mentor, one of my coaches, told me is like, Abel, I know you're a sales guy. Like, don't sell. What you want to do is talk about an opportunity, because the
Mm.
people that are really interested, they're going to ask you a bunch of questions. And I go, oh, okay, well, you may not know about this about me either, which is I never really saw myself as a sales guy either. I was more like the advisor. Like I follow the old Zig Ziglar mindset, which is
Mm.
you can have exactly what you want in life if you just help enough people get what they want. So I go, oh, I can actually keep my same hat on and just, find out, hey, if you're looking for an investment that does creates cash flow and increases your net worth and forced appreciation without you having to
Yeah.
do all the work, this is going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of cool. That's I like your mindset a lot to that end.
Yeah. I mean, think about all the time, like when I'm going to go and buy something, right? Like something for the kids or whatever. I spend a lot of time on Amazon, on Google, researching, like like I was buying my kids a fishing rod the other day, and I had to go and research like, okay, well, I didn't know there were all these different kinds. I don't know which one do I buy. But then if I had somebody who could just explain it to me, who had
Yeah.
sifted through all the other fishing rods, be like, okay, well, what do you need it for? Okay, you need it for this. Oh, is it for kids or adults? Oh, okay. Well, based on all of your needs, here's the one I would recommend because of XYZ. Think about how valuable that is and how much time that saves
Mhm.
me as the consumer. And that's the value we're providing to our investors.
Yeah, absolutely. and you've definitely helped a lot of investors. You've bought a lot of commercial multifamily real estate. So 700 million is a huge number. Help break this out a little bit for I think we have a lot of passive investors that are listening to the show trying to get educated, and then we have some, I would say, first time, second, third time, maybe general partners that have done it a couple more. They're trying to learn their nuggets to go do it themselves also. So break down how that even equates active, passive, number of deals. Maybe give us a picture.
Yeah. So for us, that 700, and it's just shy of 800 million as of this recording.
Wow.
And that's across, I believe we're at 25 or 26 deals at this point. Most
Hmm.
of them have been large scale multifamily, 200 units and above,
Hmm.
across Texas, Florida, and the Carolinas.
Hmm.
And we've done a few self-storage and mobile home parks as well, just spreading out, trying some new things. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, multifamily is definitely our bread and butter. And the other thing, of course, as you know, is partners. And so we wouldn't have been able to do all of this without the power of partners in different markets, partners with different areas of expertise, who found the deals or they underwrote the deals. We came in, brought the capital, so everybody has a different role, and only through the whole team coming together were we able to get the deals done.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations. And I know from the inner workings that that's a ton of capital you guys raised. Like, so somebody that's outside of the world, they're like, oh my gosh, maybe they hear 800 million. That's almost $1 billion, right? We don't have to come up with $1 billion to go buy that. We don't buy it all. We don't have it all, but you have to raise a good 20%, another 5 or 10% roughly for the repositioning or capex or deferred maintenance. And you guys raise a ton of capital, hundreds of millions of dollars. How did you do that, Annie? How did that happen?
Well, first, so I touched on partners. So it wasn't us that brought all of the capital. We brought a good piece of the capital for each deal, but there were definitely multiple people working together to find the right investors. Um, so it really comes down to just conversations. It started with, we started just like anybody else. We didn't have any real estate syndication experience. We didn't have a big network. And we just started. The first thing was just having organic conversations with friends and family and just sharing what we were doing, what we were seeing, and then listening to the questions that they were asking. And every time they asked a question I didn't know the answer to, I was like, oh, that's a really good question. Let me write that down and figure out the answer. And as a few different people asked me, I'd say, I'm answering the same question over and over. I'll write a blog post. And so that's where that organically started, was just a way of just providing value, providing a service for people, so that if two people asked me the same question, I knew there were probably 5 more people who had the same question or hadn't even thought of that question to ask, who could benefit from hearing the answer. And so the blogs got started, and we focused on just the blog for a while, sort of cracked the nut on that, and then moved on to create videos, did a lot of videos. And then during this time, we were fortunate, we were doing a lot of deals. And so with each deal, we were able to rinse and repeat and iterate on our process and sort of figure that out and build automations into the process. And that's what allowed us to scale so quickly, was because if it's just Julie and me taking all these investor calls and writing all this content and doing all this marketing, it would be nuts. We would never have any time, right? But each time we figured out, wait, every time we're sending out a deal, we send out this email at this exact time. Well, is there a way that that email could just go out automatically? Okay, let's figure that piece out. Okay. And also, we're having to manually put people into the spreadsheet. Well, is there a way to automatically put them in the spreadsheet? And so little by little, we'd figure out how to essentially clone ourselves
Hmm.
through building these automations bit by bit. And so I
Hmm.
think it was through the combination of just genuinely wanting to educate people and spreading the word, and then also on the back end, building those systems and those automations to support the growth.
Yeah, that's a fantastic tactical step by step, piece by piece to kind of get going. So if you're a new general partner, we're starting with friends and family. We did the same, and kind of coming back to Cutco.
Mhm.
Do you have Cutco, or have you heard of it, or how did?
I don't. I
Okay,
think it was I was at a talk that I think it might have been Kevin Harrington had given about, infomercials and way back in the day. I don't remember if it was Cutco knives, but I
yeah,
think he had discovered this guy who was selling Cutco knives or
yeah,
some knives at a grocery store.
yeah,
And he was like, man, this guy's really good. And he filmed
yeah.
him and did the first infomercial.
Yeah, you should check out some Cutco knives. But the reason I kind of hit on that is like I sold knives, did in-home presentations to people, and we met with a lot of married couples with kids, and we would do the
Uh-huh.
kitchen table. Anyways, they would how to start with friends and family,
Mm.
and that was what I did in college, and I started there. We'd ask for referrals, and they would lead me to the next person, and
Mm-hmm.
we'd have those conversations, and realize that a lot of great businesses have started friends and family, your inner circle, people that you know. Annie said the same, and then she asked or they asked her questions. She listened to those and realized they get the same questions over and over again. Create a blog post on it, and I've heard the same process is like a great way to start a book.
Mm-hmm.
You have enough of your blogs on a certain topic and put that together. You guys are authors of a
Mm-hmm.
book as well. Is Did that kind of lead
Mm-hmm.
into that process? Was that similar for you guys?
Yes, that's exactly what we did for our book. Was over the last 2.5, almost 3 years, we've written nearly 100 blog posts, and so at a certain point, we were like, well, there's so much. Here's what happened was people were starting to go to our site and there was so much content there they didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
There was just too much content. Is the opposite of what most people experience, which is they don't have enough content, but
Mm-hmm.
we had too much content,
Mm-hmm.
and there was no curriculum to help people walk through step by step. And so we said, okay, let's look across all the blog posts and let's put them in an order, and let's just choose the most relevant ones, put them in sort of a curriculum, and we turned that into the book.
Man, that's so awesome. Congratulations on that. And what a great, step by step. It wasn't fast, it wasn't easy.
Mm-mm.
It's 2 to 3 years, but every time you created a blog post, you allowed yourself to scale. You mentioned automations,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one great way because you can, instead of saying, well, let me explain this for 20 minutes, you can say,
Yep.
hey, let me give you I just wrote a blog post on this. This will probably
Mm-hmm.
answer a lot of your questions. And so it allowed you to scale and reach more people essentially. Hello, you're listening to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review, and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the Five Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. And then so the videos came in during the blogs, I guess somewhere along the way in that 2 to 3 year period, you started doing these
Yep.
videos.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I didn't mention was our newsletter. So
Okay.
right off
Newsletters.
the bat,
Mm-hmm.
I announced that we were going to our company is Goodegg, right? So I was like, Goodegg, what puns? I'm a big pun person. So I came up with the name, the Weekly Scramble. So the Good Egg Weekly Scramble.
There you go. There's a weekly scramble for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so people said I was crazy. They were like, "What? You're going to do a weekly newsletter? That's way too much." And I said, "You know what? If I don't do it weekly, if I don't put that in the title of the newsletter,
Ugh.
I am not going to
Yeah, you will
commit
do it.
and it's going to fall to the wayside." And I know how important it is to show up in people's inboxes again and again. People think social media is so important, but you don't know that you're at the whim of Facebook's algorithms. You don't know who's actually going to see anything that you post. But when you have somebody's email and you show up in their inbox, that's gold right there. So I
Mhm.
knew that this was the key. And so the newsletter was actually the anchor point, the cornerstone
Mhm.
for all of the blog posts and the videos, because every Tuesday I knew that that newsletter was going to go out like clockwork. People were expecting it. I couldn't fall back on my word. I said it was going to be a weekly newsletter. So I knew that every Tuesday that was my deadline. So I had to work backwards from there. And I said, okay, well, if it's going out Tuesday, okay, maybe Friday I can block off some time and write a blog post. Maybe Monday I can create some images. And so it was really in those early days, it was that weekly newsletter that got us going and kept us going.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that is the essentially that underlying platform that allowed you to kind of keep pushing out education, which we realize, oh, the more I give value, the more I'm going to get in return. We talked about that earlier. Allowed you to build your base, and those are your investors. The people that you educate are like, well, I'm getting education from Annie and Goodegg and Julie. Why not invest with them, right? It
Mm-hmm.
just kind of makes sense.
Yep.
So that is, just the way you did that, hundreds of millions of dollars. And not, like you said, not only yourself, there's partners. That's
Mm-hmm.
the great thing about commercial real estate is there are probably other partners that are doing something similar, and we're all working together on one team, and somebody resonates with, Abel, and somebody's going to
Yep.
resonate with Julian and Annie. And then you guys all work together, and we're all crushing one deal anyways. So that's cool.
Exactly. Exactly.
How help somebody for like let's say a passive investor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out, I'm going to do my first deal or my second deal. I'm just kind of in that newish area. um, how do I know what sources are the best sources for the education, or how do I like had I not been, well, let me phrase this, sorry, differently, Annie. If I didn't know what I was searching for in the beginning, I wouldn't have ever found your site in the first place. Like,
Mm.
I didn't know to search for like IRR. I didn't know to search
Mm-hmm.
for like cash on cash return. I didn't know to search for certain terminology until I started taking education. And that was like a conundrum, kind of position I was in. I spent like $20,000 on this package, a course, and then they
Mm-hmm.
started telling me all these terms. That's when I started hitting the internet. I knew what to search for. So hoping those people found this
Mm-hmm.
podcast, right? But
Yeah.
how do I even like go out and search for this knowledge? How do I know what to trust? How do I do that? So kind of shaping that, for the passive investor that's trying to learn more.
Yeah. Such a good question. And I think as a new, like, think about learning anything new, right? One of the main one of the keys to getting started and finding that success is really just to surrender to the process and to be open-minded and to let yourself fall into that rabbit hole. I think just approaching it with that natural curiosity to start, and not saying, I have an agenda, I need to do this, but just saying, okay, this real estate thing, this seems kind of interesting. I wonder what it's all about, and not getting to the point where it's like it has to be syndications. Just really being open-minded and be like, okay, well, what are other people doing,
Mm-hmm.
and starting to listen to podcasts or reading blog posts or forum threads and just seeing what people are up to. I think that's the best place to start, is because there's so many ways to make money in real estate, and to really start and figure out, what is the right fit for you and your goals. And that's the other thing, is starting out, you might not even know what your goals are. You might just have heard that real estate is a great way to make money, but You don't know if it's passive income you're looking for, if it's monthly cash flow, if you can wait for a while, if it's that appreciation, if it's the tax benefits. And so as you're hearing other people tell their stories, you'll start to say, oh, you know what? That is what I want. Or, I don't want to work very much, or I do want to roll up my sleeves. I want to learn the whole process. And so I think that's a key part, is just being open-minded and just letting yourself explore. The universe will guide you in the right direction. You just got to trust the process. And then once you figure out the things that you resonate the most with, then I think what you described, is finding a coach, finding a program, that is one of the best ways, because that'll take you from A to Z. Because when you read blog posts here and there, it's really hard to get a holistic picture of how everything works. But that's how Julie and I started too. We both, before we met, we each individually had invested in different coaching programs. And so I attribute a big part of my success to those coaching programs.
Yeah, yeah, that's really great. Surrender to the process. I like the way you put that, because I mean, you should be, um, when you're dealing with your money, your retirement, your wealth. You work so hard. For anybody listening, you work so hard for like your W-2 check. You put in all these hours, all the time, all the effort, all the energy, and you finally get your check. And if you're, willing to save some of this money for investment purposes, like you should really take some time to educate yourself, be curious, be inquisitive, start to learn about how people make money, earn money, create cash flow, passive, active, whatever, just like Annie describes, because then you can say, oh, this is what I'm excited about. If you're excited about learning about it, you're going to do so much better, and
Mhm.
you'll create wins for yourself, and you'll turn your 50 into 100, and 100 to 2, and 2 to 4, and a million to 2, right?
Yep.
So let's keep going. That's awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Eddie. So education, coaching, mentoring, training, so many people, well, there's a lot of people I talk to anyways. They kind of ask me, how the heck did you get started? Right. Cause I'm invested in passively in about 400 doors ish. And I'm invested as an active partner about 400 doors ish. We have a couple
Mhm.
deals under contract. We're super excited. I started investing when I was 20 in 2018. And so it's been a little under 2 years for me. And people are like, wow, how the heck did you do that? And I said, well, frankly, I dropped more money than I wanted to on many multiple coaching, education, training, mentor, programs, some for multifamily, some that I thought were multifamily were not. And I traveled a bunch of cities all across the US, did a bunch of networking, try to meet people like you, experts and pros. It took it was a lot of effort, a lot of time just to get rolling, right?
Mhm.
Um, but had I not done that, I think I would have still been, trying to figure out like my first deal. And
Yep.
now I feel like shoot, we're on our fifth or sixth or seventh. I don't know. We're kind of
Mhm.
moving, right? So building
Yeah.
momentum. You started in education. Maybe describe your, start, and then lead us back to what you're doing today. Now you're the coach.
Yeah, that's right. So I've always had a passion for education. After my first job out of college was as a fourth grade teacher. And so I taught for a couple of years with Teach for America, and I loved it. I love the idea of taking something that was complex and breaking it down into easy to understand steps. And I think that's another part of why we've seen success, is because most people, um, they find it hard to explain a concept like real estate syndication, because it's complex. There's a lot of moving parts. But when you can break it down and use common language, that's the other key piece, is to use terms that people understand, then people will resonate better with it. And so I started out in education, actually got into game design, designing educational video games, and then got into training adults through learning and development and corporate training. And so these days, we still have coaches to this day. We still have coaches, and they're a big part of the direction and the creation of and the sustenance of our business. And so, a year or so ago, maybe a little bit more than a year, we started getting because we were seeing all this traction as you're seeing, we got all these calls from people saying, oh, could you teach me? Could you teach me what you're doing? And so, we'd hop on the call for half an hour, but there's only so much you can teach somebody in 30
Mhm.
minutes or even 60 minutes.
Yeah, and
And
only one Annie, only one
right,
Julie. I mean, and then your business, like you have to do your business.
right, right.
So yes.
Yeah. And so that's when we realized, hey, well, maybe we can actually create a coaching program out of this. And so that's when we created the Real Estate Accelerator. And through it, we really took a good hard look at Goodegg Investments and everything that we had created. And we said, okay, how can we strip out everything that worked, leave everything that didn't work, and give everything as is to people so that they can just hit the ground running. And so that's what the program is all about. And we've been so blessed. We've had, over 50 people in the program now, and some of them, it's so fun to watch. Some of them are starting to have their first 7-figure raises, and it's incredible.
Yeah, that's so awesome. It feels amazing, to have I think the word that you said was traction, which is a good book, by the way. But
Mm.
that literal traction is like, oh, it's feedback. It's immediate feedback to the work and effort that you're doing that says what you're doing is working. Let's keep
Hmm.
going. So
Yep.
it feels great having that. And when you don't have traction or anybody to point you in the direction or anybody to say, hey, I know you're interested in this, but right now that's 10 steps ahead. You don't
Hmm.
really need to, worry about your loan or term size or financing debt or, these things. We're still on, underwriting the deal to see if it makes sense. So do this first. LOI, in that perspective, but you're trying to figure out somebody to say, hey, do you even have the capital raise to go?
Hmm.
If you can't put an LOI if you don't have line of sight to capital, right? So a lot of those things, to have a coach and a mentor and a guide, essentially,
Hmm.
that's the same. I hired a professional coach. He's a former NFL football player, Marcus Ogden, and I ended up working with him because he was a commercial real estate guy.
Mm.
Earned, did really well, and then he lost all of his millions of dollars and kind of
Ooh,
started over. And I go, well,
brutal.
that's somebody I
Yeah.
want to coach
Right.
me to make sure I don't go through the same path that
Yes.
he did. And he's amazing at coaching me. Like once a week we do that.
Yeah.
And then like I said, signed up for many multiple multifamily programs, right? So they're so
Hmm.
valuable. Traction is good.
Yes. Yeah, and
So
the
valuable.
networking is so valuable too because this is it's a team sport.
Yeah.
And so I can't tell you how many times we've partnered with people that we've met through these programs or they've reached out to us with opportunities, and it's all about who you know.
At the beginning, I was like, can I please get on a deal? And this year I've turned down 4.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure you've turned down many more than that. But I never thought I would be in a position where like, oh, I'm getting
Yeah.
offered
Mhm.
positions, to be in many multiple $1 million deals,
Yeah.
and they're being
It's
brought to
wild.
me now,
Yeah.
which is crazy. It's good stuff. Hey,
Uh-huh.
last thing before we, kind of start wrapping up, which is
Yeah.
um, help a general partner
Mhm.
that is trying to, or a new passive investor. Maybe they
Mhm.
started passive investing. They're trying to be a general partner.
Mm.
It costs a lot to kind of invest in yourself, your time, your business.
Mhm.
It's always something I hear, and I know it's a very personal question to everybody, but it's like, when should they leave their full-time job and
Mm.
go like full-time W-2? Because so many people ask me this question. It's
Yep.
good. It's good hearing other people's insight, and
Mhm.
the way they answer it, right, is like,
Yeah.
when should I leave my W-2? Like, I'm so worried,
Right.
I'm concerned, I have money, family, all
Mhm.
these obligations, and I'm just like gonna go out to go do it. It's like jumping off of a freaking, walking a
Yep.
plank or something. But
Yeah.
anyways, tell me a little bit about your mindset in this.
Oh, absolutely. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying, especially if you've never started a business before. Like I had never. I had in the 10 years following college, I had 9 jobs. And it's true what they say now that looking back is if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing in life, you run into obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. The moment you start doing what you were intended to do, everything opens up. And that is exactly what I saw once I jumped into the world of entrepreneurship. But it did take a lot to get over that hurdle. I think it's different for everybody based on comfort level. For me, I'm the kind that I burn all the ships. I burn all the ships, and I have to go all in, like the Weekly Scramble, right? I have to go all in. There's no 1 foot in, 1 foot out for me. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. But I know other people, there are many people in our coaching program, they're raising $1 million plus per deal, and they're still working full-time jobs. I know people who are syndicating their own deals, raising capital and doing the underwriting, everything, and they're still working. And, so I think it's up to each person and their capacity. But one exercise that I found particularly helpful for me before I quit my job, I had heard this on a podcast, and I wish I still have it in my notebook somewhere here, but it said, take a moment and write down what you want, and then write down your fears around that, and then write down the opportunities that could come from that. And at that time, I wanted to start my own business, my own real estate business. And when it's like swimming around in your head, all those fears seem huge. They seem like huge monsters, and they're all over your head, right? So the moment I started putting it down on paper, it turned out it was only like 3 or 4 main fears that I had. And then I look over at the opportunity column, and there are like 20 things listed.
It goes on and on
Yeah.
and on, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, wait a second, I'm holding back because of just these 2 or 3 fears. And at that moment, I actually burst out crying at that moment because
I'm actually welling up a little bit. I'm welling up thinking about,
yeah.
please. Yeah.
Yeah. At that moment, I looked down at that paper, I saw the discrepancy, and I burst into tears because I knew to my core, I knew I had to quit my job. And 2, I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified to do it, but I knew what I had to do.
That's awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. I think that's really, really, really great. Hopefully somebody, hears that and is like, is set free to go roll. And I on a similar kind of mindset, right? I'm in another mastermind, and it's Kingdom REI mastermind. Ellis Hammett leads it, a Christian real estate mastermind. And the kind of fear that they were asking about, and what I ended up coming out of my mouth was like, I'm still terrified. Like today, I left my job this year, and this is my full-time year, right? But I was like, I don't want to put my family in a position where like we don't have a house anymore. Like we're going to go broke or something. And I've got a 2.5, my 1-year-old, we talked about it, right? And we had a great run through the W-2 job, like hundreds and thousands of dollars a year. And I'm going to go from this to that. And the mindset that came up through there was like, you are really like, we have a single family portfolio that we were trying to sell off shortly to go to multifamily all the way. But anyways, we're invested in multifamily. We have some good savings. We have some good cash. The mindset that came back in return after I said this out loud, I'm scared of like going homeless or something, losing it all, was you are so far away from being like homeless. Like it is unreal. If you're in a good situation, you have family, friends, you're like so many steps away from even having that. It's worth a little bit of risk. Like go get it. Right. And so I love hearing it from you. The way you wrote down what you want, put your fears, put the opportunity, and the opportunity column will just, keep going. That's so awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
Well, good deal. Where, if our listeners, our people want to come, get closer to you, get to your world, get some education, invest, whatever, what's the best place for them to reach out to you?
Absolutely. So the best place to go is our website, goodegginvestments.com. And there you'll find all the resources. If you're a passive investor, we have our Passive Real Estate Investing 101 email course to get you started. If you're a general partner or looking to raise your own capital, you'll find information about our Real Estate Accelerator course there as well.
Oh, thank you so much. We're excited to reach out to you. And is there anything else that I didn't cover today? Anything I didn't ask about? Something you were excited to bring up that I didn't touch on?
Oh, I think we were going to talk about the books.
Oh, please. Absolutely. Thank you very much. I had such a good conversation. I'm like, man, so tell us about your books. Tell us,
Well, no, we were gonna you were gonna ask me to recommend some books, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, first tell me about your book. We talked
Sure.
about Invest
Yeah.
with Good. You
Mm-hmm.
talked about your blogs. You talked about that
Yeah.
stuff. Can I get it on Audible or can I get it on is it paperback? Where can I find it? That kind of stuff.
So it's not on Audible yet. It's one of those things on our list, on our huge list that has just never risen to the top. But anyway, we do have a free hardcover copy for each of your listeners, as long as they cover the shipping and handling. Anybody can get it. Just text the word book to 41404.
Mhm.
And you'll get all the details there. But it's like I said, it's packed with all of our a lot of our blog posts, but like redone and remastered in a way. And it's really the journey from why invest in real estate at all to what are real estate syndications, what's the process, what are the risks involved, what are the tax benefits, and it really goes from A to Z to cover all of it.
Nice. Yes, thank you. And then we talked about pre-show. What books are you reading
Yes.
today, or best ones you can kind of steer some people towards more commercial multifamily education? That'd be awesome.
I can never read enough books. I think I'm always reading like 5 or 6 books at the same time. But I do have, when you asked me that question, there were 3 books that jumped out at me that I thought would be great to recommend to your audience. So one is for any passive investors, or actually any general partners too, who are looking to invest long distance. I remember the first time I was looking at markets, I was like, it's so intimidating. I don't know where to even start. So I picked up a copy of Dave Lindahl's book, Emerging Real Estate Markets.
Hmm.
And it's a fantastic introduction to how to find and vet different markets. Even if you're not looking for an emerging market, it teaches you about all the fundamentals to look for in each market: job growth, population growth, job diversity, even things like a physical barrier to growth, like an ocean or a mountain. So things like that to think about. Um,
That's a solid. I know Dave Lindahl. I haven't heard
uh-huh.
about that book for those reasons. That sounds really good.
Yeah, it is a really good one. So Emerging Real Estate Markets. The second book I would recommend is for anybody who's building your own brand. It's called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And the premise of the book is it's based on the hero's journey. And most business owners think their business is the hero in the story. So your business is the Luke Skywalker. But in fact, you're not the Luke Skywalker. Your customer, or in this case, your investor, they are the Luke Skywalker. And you, guess what? You're the Yoda. You're supposed to be the guide to help your investor along the way. And so when you start to think about it that way, it completely transforms your entire business. It completely transforms the way that you do business. And so when I read that, I went to our website, I changed the entire website, reframed all of our messaging, and it's made such a huge difference. So building a story brand is the second one. The last book I would recommend is a general, like, sort of business manifestation sort of a book. It's Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural. I'm just now getting into Joe Dispenza, and all of his work on neuroplasticity and manifestation and all this stuff that I previously thought was so woo-woo. Now I'm seeing it happen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, all the universe is conspiring to like bring all this stuff in. So and Joe Dispenza's work, he's such a scientist at heart. So he brings in all this research and all this data to really help you see that it's not woo-woo. And in fact, anybody can tap into it.
Yeah. Yeah. The neuroplasticity, is that along the same lines of like, hey, we're wired in a certain way, and the literal electric paths, currents, or whatever. And if I use this one for positive manifestation all the time, or I complain, I'm negative, then, it fires one route or the other, and you got to like, that kind of thing.
Yeah. He told this story about his own son, who had always had a passion for surfing. And so after college, he took some time off and just traveled the world to surf. And then at the end of this time, he was like, okay, he called his dad up. He was like, I'm out of money. I guess I got to come home and find a job. I don't want to sit behind a desk. And his dad said, okay, here's what you do. You meditate every day and you think about the thing that you want, not exactly how it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, but you think about what you want, the attributes of what you want. And so his son did this for months. And then he finally came home and he's like, okay, well, now what? And his dad's like, well, keep now you got to double down. You're here and you've got time, you got to double down. And he says, one of the first days that he got back home, he happened to go down to this well-known surf shop. And right as he's walking in, one of the I guess a world famous surfboard designer walks right out. And because he knows so much about surfing, he strikes up a conversation with him. And it turns out that designer was looking for somebody to help design and test these new surfboard fins. I don't even know. And so he got the job of his dreams, and it just like seemingly fell into his lap. But
seemingly, right. And you spend so much time meditating on the what you want, what you want to have, be, do, and then you spend enough time here. And I'm a big faith guy, so like, for me, it's prayer, meditation. I'm thinking, being grateful and praying that out. And it's like, it makes a huge difference in everything that you do. So
absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, Annie, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm looking at my timer. I apologize. It was such a good conversation. I'm glad I ended it before the end of the hour, but thank you very, very much, sincerely. And we just, God bless you and your business and everything that you do. So thank you.
So grateful for the opportunity to be here with you and your listeners. And I wish you and your listeners all the best.
All right. Thank you. My name is Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the 5 Talents Commercial Podcast. So if you liked something and you heard something of value today, which I know there's a few nuggets that Annie dropped, please leave us a review, leave us a rating, drop a note for Annie, let her know and provide her some feedback, and then reach out to her. She would love to reach out to you as well. So thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next show. Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 Talents Podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who followed their dreams and achieved massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5 Talents Podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast.